So Raiders of the Lost Ark, 1981, starring Harrison Ford, Karen Allen, and a host of other people that are now, part of our film lexicon. Steven Spielberg, of course, directing it. I believe the idea came about from George Lucas because they were both on holiday together, having done Star Wars and Close Encounters and all that stuff. And they went on holiday together, and Spielberg said something like, I've always wanted to do a Bond film. And George Lucas was like, well, I've got that beat. I got this idea. Indiana Smith. He's this archaeologist, blah, blah, blah. And Spielberg said, change the name to Jones and we got a deal. And the rest
Smith and Jones.
History. Smith and Jones, exactly. Jones is a better Welsh name, see? Indiana Jones is a Welshman. He's a good old Welshman. That's the thing that he doesn't get credits for, being Welsh.
Now, that would be a great remake, wouldn't it? The Welsh Indiana Jones.
Or just go to a prequel far back, where his ancestor, before they went over there, was a Welshman.
From the valleys.
He's from the valleys, and he found the tomb of King Arthur, which is up here in the Camlo Hills, as everybody knows.
Yeah, it's exactly right. Lucas actually wrote the Indiana Smith before he made Star Wars. He'd had it a long time before that, but he ended up obviously doing Star Wars first, but it was always sitting there kind of waiting for its moment, I guess.
Yeah.
And much like, in Star Wars was his attempt to recreate and was very heavily influenced by Buck Rogers and all those sci-fi serials of the 30s and the 40s. This was the same thing. It was influenced by those adventure serials of the 30s and
Zorro and stuff like that.
Exactly. And comic books of the same time, like Doc Savage and stuff. It was very influenced
Doc Savage, that is so cool.
Savage.
That is so cool that you brought that in. Good old Doc Savage. Now that's going back to the days underneath your covers when you're 8 years old with a torch reading a comics annual, action annual with Doc Savage strip in it.
Yes.
Doesn't get any better than that.
It doesn't. And it's nice. It's one of the things that it works really nicely that they were so influenced by these things from their childhood. Yeah. And they got the opportunity to kind of put them on such a bigger stage.
And going back to what we said about being universal, I think that's why, they definitely appeal to boys, fans of comics. They are boys' movies. I hate to say that in a way, but the cool thing is, though, in a lot of ways, like in this first film, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Karen Allen plays Marion Ravenwood, and she's kind of tough in it. She can drink them under the table. She can throw a punch. She's not completely helpless. There's a bit more Princess Leia going in there. So even though they're kind of boys' movies in that way, the women are represented. They're kicking some ass. They're badass too. Certainly in this film, I thought she was great in it. It's one of the most favourite things about it for me, Karen Allen's character. That whole setup at the start where they're doing the drinks contest and they're having the shots, and that hilarious shot of that guy where he's just like, he slowly keels over. That's Spielberg at his best. Love her in it. But yeah, influenced by the serials. Also influenced by other films. If you look at like pictures of like Gary Cooper and stuff over the days, the fedoras there and the bandolier and everything, it's very much that look was already established, wasn't it?
Yeah, going back to the kind of late 40s and the 50s, there was lots of films that, of course, they were influenced by those serials and comics as well. And films with like Gary Cooper. There's a great film, Secret of the Incas. Yeah. Which is very much basically Indiana Jones as a film, which as we've seen,
Charlton Heston, look at him.
Charlton Heston.
That hat's got quite a wide brim, hasn't it?
It's very wide brim,
we've seen this scarf. That's kind of
special, isn't it?
It's very special.
But we've seen this with Star Wars, how so many films from that period influenced Star Wars, and loads of references and shot for shot stuff where you go, that's that. And Indiana Jones is exactly the same. Less talked about, I guess, because Star Wars is so widely covered in those kind of things. But Indy was the same for
Indy's more grounded. It happens in our world. It's historical piece. It's based in the past. So there's lots for us all to grab onto there. In this film, you got the Nazis are the bad guys because it's like 1936, I think it's, or somewhere there. But it's based towards just before the start of World War II. The Nazis are looking for this ancient artifact, the Ark of the Covenant, some ancient Hebrew sort of like I don't know, it's like a little tomb, isn't it? Or like a little coffin. It's full of full of ghosts. No, it's full of sand. But the Nazis are looking for it because Hitler apparently had this interest in the occult. So they've played down that strain. Whether he did or not, fuck knows. But they certainly sell it in this.
It's always been one of them fascinating story beats, isn't it? Hitler obsessed with the occult. It always works. In terms of the Nazis love all this strange old stuff. It's just a great story beat to always hit.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's the Nazis are the bad guys. That's the best bad guys to have. You know, I want to see loads of them get burned up, killed, shot in the worst way, run over by tanks. And if you really hate Nazis like I do, these are the perfect films to watch. And that kind of, he developed that with the character as well. It's obviously Spielberg doing it. You know, he hates Nazis too, and for good reason. And he made Indiana Jones the type of person. He even says,
Nazis. I hate these guys.
You want to see some Nazi killing? This is the one. You've also got Ronald Lacey playing Tote, the Gestapo guy, the SS guy.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like this consummate British actor. Really, really cool. He's played loads of parts. Very good at playing a villain. He was in Porridge, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. He was a character in Porridge. But, you know, his career's almost over, and I think he's stopped trying to get roles a lot, and he's gone into teaching film or acting, and stuff like that. He's kind of retired, semi-retired, and he gets cast in this, and that's, you know, it's the role of a lifetime, isn't it?
It is,
and he is the personification. When I was a kid and I watched this, and this guy, he was terrifying, he was despicable, he was Weasley. He looked like he couldn't fight himself. He always made other people do it. You know, he looked like you could... You know, you had health issues and everything, and he's always coughing in his hand. He's really horrible. But that's like the perfect sort of caricature of these evil, like, German Nazis. And he just plays it so well.
Yeah, he plays it to a T. And it's kind of they're the kind of actors you need to pull in for roles like this, aren't they? You know, the classic British actors and stuff. They always hit the nail on the head. And yeah, I mean, I remember as a kid watching the wonderful stop motion melting. That frightened me as a kid. I was like,
well, even before that,
strong.
When he's going into the first catacomb, you know, where the very first set piece with the golden idol, there's some skeletons and dead bodies in there, aren't there? That are really gruesome. So, I mean, the first time I ever watched it was probably when they put it on telly. So we're talking like mid 80s, probably around 1984, something like that. And I'd be about 6 then, something like that. And the trailer for it coming on ITV or something. You know, my dad's going, oh, look at this, have a look at this. I'm just like, oh my God. It's like my whole world changed. So Star Wars before that and Superman probably made the biggest impressions on me before that as a kid. I'd seen this and it was just love at first sight. I just thought, I was all about that. You know, after seeing it, you got some hat that's somehow like a cowboy hat or something that roughly resembled the Indiana Jones hat. Got a bit of old rope or old twine, and that was, you know, got a stick for that. Oh, it was, you just want to be Indiana Jones after that. Got one of your mum's old handbags because he always had that. He always had that handbag, didn't he? That he put his stuff in.
Oh, lipstick.
But it was just the ultimate thing as a kid. It was just like, oh my God.
It is the ultimate thing.
Hero.
Yeah. Well, I always think like what an opening this film has, not only obviously the fantastic set piece that everyone knows now.
It's iconic, isn't it?
Getting the idol, the ball rolling, it's been satirized so much. But even just before that, the very opening part is going through the woods with the guys who were leading
the woods, the deep jungles.
Deep jungle. Leading him to this, this cave. It's an amazing opening sequence for the character because you don't see Indy's face for the first couple of minutes as we see the credits and he's going through. But the camera keeps really close and starts focusing on the different areas of Indy. There's his whip, there's his hat, and all these almost in silhouette. And it's these shots that are telling you everything about the character really quickly without saying it until we get the big reveal. And then obviously the guy tries to do him in and it gets him. And it's like, what a nice, brilliant opening to introduce a character.
Yeah.
And then we get a great set piece where shows you what he can do.
So there he is. The first thing we see about him, he's like cool as fuck. Is like the guy's sneaking up behind him with a piece, and he whips it out of his hand, and then just lets the guy run off. Like, it's like this guy's badass. But when we start to get into it as well, the humor starts to come out. The spiders whipping him off his back like he's not bothered about spiders at all, and that is a setup for later on. He's going to be terrified of snakes.
Yeah,
because you think he's not scared of anything. He's just knocking tarantula spiders. Alfred Molina's there going, oh, he's covered in that, and that's how we'd all be, isn't it? That's how we'd be like, oh my God, spider crawling on your face, across your face is just terrifying. But Indy just knocks him off. Yeah, come on, let's go. There's this humour with the character. So they're establishing that, which is a really powerful part of it. And I think Harrison Ford was very good at playing up to that as well. That he's like, he can be this like ultimate iconic style hero, but he's also fallible. Yeah, like when he jumps across the bottomless pit in that place and he goes to slip and he thinks he's got it and he grabs a vine and the vine goes and there's look on his face as if he goes, ooh, he's suddenly, one minute he's smiling like I made it and then he's like, ooh. And I thought it really grounded the character and made him feel very, quite real, like human.
Absolutely. And I think that's a lot to do with Harrison himself. Obviously, amazing actor. We love him to pieces. He does so many great things over the years. And kind of knows how to choose a role. But I think we've said before how like protective of the role he seemed. Yeah. Because of how much he's invested himself into this character, which is probably his favourite role he's ever done in terms of
definitely.
He protects it. And
he hates Han Solo.
Yeah.
Well, whatever reason, he just hates Han Solo, but he loves Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And he does such an amazing control of that character, of what he is, what he means. He gets it,
Yeah,
and
I'd say definitely he's got a lot to do with that, but also probably Spielberg, because Spielberg was always great at humanizing the extraordinary. That's the great appeal of his early films, when you got E.T. and Close Encounters. They were real people. These extraordinary things were happening to. So he is very good at that, and Harrison Ford just played it so well. But this is the thing, the guy's he's a multi-dimensional character. He's a tough guy, like almost generic, iconic James Bond style tough guy, like nothing can get past him. He's also fallible, and he makes these mistakes we can relate to, and they're funny. Like when he's running to that plane, just start the plane, Jock, start the plane. He's like panicking, and it's like builds that suspense. But he's also a college professor, so he's also absolutely, switched on, clever mother figure as well. And that's where we kind of go to after that first set piece, and he gets away. He loses the icon to Belloc, played by, again, another great British actor, Paul Freeman. Brilliant. Playing Beloche. But he gets away with his life. And there's a snake in the plane. Oh my God, I hate snakes, Jock. I hate them. And it's like, not terrified by spiders, but terrified of snakes. And that in itself is going to set it up for later on. A couple of movies down the line, and they explain why. It's brilliant, but we'll get to that. We've got that amazing bit at the start in the jungle and the idol. Then we have a little bit of exposition with the Ark and this is the mission. But then we're straight back into another thrilling set piece with the fight in the bar in the Himalayas. It just doesn't stop this film. It just gives you one after the other. It
is like set piece after set piece, but enough time in between them to tell the story and bring something more to it, to then just into the next thing. The pacing is brilliant. Yeah. You're never sitting bored during the film, that's for sure.
Shot as well, really nicely shot. I think it was Douglas Slocum, one of the great old British cinematographers. The kind of guy that I think Spielberg said about he could just look at the sun and know what T-stop for it to be at and what lens to use and everything. He was just an old master. And I think that choice to use a great cinematographer like that and give it a very classic look where everything is lit perfectly and everything looks so dramatic. The use of shadows, The lighting in it's perfect, the costumes, and of course the John Williams score. These all help to elevate it from just a dumb action movie, like a lot of the ones that kind of came out afterwards, influenced by it. This was the big difference between this and then. There was the level of professionalism that went into it.
Absolutely, and I think with the look, they obviously took, say, a classical approach and very much influenced by the kind of classical Hollywood of the 50s and stuff, and went, we're going to make this look real and perfection, And,
perfection is the word,
and the like when they're in the desert and the golden landscapes and stuff in there.
Some of the shots, people say the best shots in cinema. That shot where they're digging the Well of Souls, and the sun's going down, and the silhouette of them all digging.
It's amazing.
He's there with the hat on, and that's Douglas Slocum. That's like brilliant cinematography. The sound design as well. Every time a gun gets fired, it's there's this incredible. The punches sound like larger than life. Is always this huge bang bang. Everything about it is bombastic. The score's bombastic. The sets, the set pieces, the stunt work is incredible. Some of the best stuntmen in the world. That's where it's like James Bond in that, everything is of such a high quality. The locations, everything we've just mentioned is of such a high standard, and the perfect casting that it's hard to go wrong with Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah.
It definitely fits into that narrative of Spielberg wanting to make like a Bond film because, it's great stunt work in these exotic locations with great sets and everything, as you say, is so
well. That's it.
large.
You started in the jungle, then you're back over to America for the college, typical sort of 1930s college. Then you got the Himalayas, where he goes to find her. Then they've got that great thing with the plane going on the map. That's probably taken from earlier stuff that he's sort of redone and brought to, because that's iconic and synonymous with the films. I think that sort of red line going across the map. It's like, it's not an Indiana Jones film without that.
No, and how many people have used that since? It's such a great idea.
And it's a homage to Indiana Jones then. But then they go to Egypt and you've got all that great stuff happening there. And you've got the fight with Pat Roach as well near that Nazi plane.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That's just... And before all that, you've got running through the markets of Cairo and stuff with the famous sword swiveling scene where they were all the crew was ill with food poisoning and no one was really up for filming, and Harrison Ford thought of I'll shoot him instead and save us all a bloody ball ache, which is just genius. And again, for me, that always tied into Han Solo, shooting Greedo under the table.
Yeah, exactly.
That shady sort of, I'll just shoot you. It's so American, isn't it? It's like, I'll just kill you with a gun.
But says so much about the character, doesn't it?
It's so cool. It's such a cool moment. The guy's there. He's huge. He's like 6'4". He's got a massive scimitar sword or something. He's swinging it about like it's a, baton, and he's going to take your head off with it. Just kills him with a 38. It's like, everybody laughed at that. It was iconic, I think, as iconic cinema moment.
But it's so, that when we talk about it being grounded in reality, it's so logical as well in terms of course he's going to have a gun, so why not just
why not just shoot him?
Yeah, you kind of get, of course, that's what you do in that situation. So it's perfect in that way, and
because you got the chase through the streets. Then she's in the basket. Which basket is it? And he thinks she's ended up on this truck that blows up, and it's a real sort of whoa moment. And Marion's dead. He goes to get drunk, then he with the monkey, and you're so invested in it by then. It's like, this, even though it's just fantasy, it's, silly stuff, really. Spielberg does such a good job of, you get this rich character development that you're just so into it by then.
Yeah, absolutely. It's manages to capture the imaginations as you're watching it. It's
and to finish up the story, we get to the point where there's the big showdown. They've been on the ship, and there's the Nazi sub in there as well. You get the U-boat in there, and then they take it to that place, and they're going to do the ceremony, and that's the whole, industrial light and magic bit, really, isn't it? With all the ghosts coming out of it. Don't look, Marion, don't look. And then, like you said earlier, the face melting, that was terrifying. But it's good that they didn't hold back on all that stuff. And
it is.
Here's a little one for you as well. Back in the day, that used to be a 15. And nowadays, it's been reclassified, I think, as it doesn't say on there, but it's a PG now.
Well,
that's another thing they did as well. Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. No. It's just Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Well, that was the same with Star Wars, wasn't it? You know, it was Star Wars, and then it became Episode 4, New Hope afterwards. But the same with that, they go back and retcon it. But there's more explanation on the rating for the next with the next film. But yeah, I mean, it is the stunning ending that they don't hold back on, and the effects for the time, and they still hold up today. Of all
they still
puppetry and the mountain, it's amazing. It's the stuff that always works, doesn't it? The great puppets and stuff they created, and stop motion animation and stuff like that.
Practical effects. But it's a good mix, isn't it? Because you've got all those ghosts swirling around and stuff, and that almost terrified me more. The thought of these like ghosts swirling about and stuff. It's exactly what you kind of picture, and then they turn nasty, don't they? And they get nasty faces. And the same sort of technology they use just a year or two later with Ghostbusters. It was the same crew, ILM crew, doing these amazing special effects. So a great mix of practical and I suppose digital special effects, as they were starting to become then, or what do they call them? Special effects. They used to call them in the 80s. Special effects.
Oh, this film is kind of the, we'd had Star Wars and Jaws before this, but this is the kind of the launch of the 80s blockbusters decade, which really became the decade of blockbusters.
Yeah.
And ILM was completely tied into that. They did all the films, didn't they? They were involved in everything because they were the guys.
Oh, yeah, and they will have just grown and got bigger and bigger and taught loads of people how to do it who are still working today. But fantastic film. One of my all-time greatest films of all time.
Absolutely.
If that's a thing. The all-time greatest films of all time. But yeah, I used to say, didn't I, when we were in uni making our student films, unless we can make a film as good as Raiders of the Lost Ark, we just think we ain't got a film. It's a good sort of level to sort of, for all of these reasons, because it's difficult to make a film that good that ticks so many boxes. And it's kind of accessible to a lot of people. It's very open. So, yeah, Raiders, what a film. If you have enjoyed this video, please consider supporting us at buymeacoffee.com or join us on Patreon. All links below.